Welcome back to the Building Confidence podcast, where I, your host, Louise, as a party, share what I've learned through the years, through the tears, so you don't have to. This is episode 122, and we're going to be talking about people's outbursts, how to not make them about you. This episode is proudly supported by Zadie, and I'll talk a little bit more about them later on. All right, so other people's outbursts, right? Annoying. They really can get under your skin. And when you go and talk to someone, if they just yell at you, or if someone just comes over and has like this massive like emotional vomit of like rage, anger, arrogance, whatever you want to call it, onto you, it can feel pretty crap. So when I was at my second workplace, after I completed my apprenticeship, I moved. And we were contracting out to this site. Unfortunately, my boss was going through a cancer diagnosis and we were doing chemo, so we were working a lot on this other site. And, this guy, arrogant, sexist, a bully, not great, the owner of the company. All great things you want in an owner of a company, right? But anyway, so we used to build machines, agriculture equipment, and we used to custom design and kind of come up with new models and different things. So we were building this new model of mower, and there was this rod that could be either put like on the inside of the frame or mounted on the outside of the frame. It was like a bolt on each side that could move this little plate inside or outside the frame, and then there was like this little rod that goes along that frame. And we had put it, I can't remember if it was inside or outside. We had put it in one position, let's say inside. And, the machine was finishing up. It was Friday afternoon. And he comes into the shed and he's like, "What have you done? I told you to put that rod on the outside. Like, why do you do this? You're so stupid." And he started just going at me. And I was like, "No, this is not okay. Like, don't speak to me that way." I don't know if I said that. Look, to be honest, it was a bit of a blur, but I was in a bit of a rage. And we had a drafts person there. So drafts people, they do up all the drawings and designs of the things that, in that particular instant, we were making. Drafts people, do up drawings and designs of buildings, construction, buildings, and all different things that have to be constructed. Drafts people usually draft up what it's going to look like and those plans. So I went to the drafts person, and I was like, "Hey, can you pull up the plans for this mower?" Like, he's just had a go at me because I've put the rod in the wrong spot, apparently. But I just want to check because I'm pretty sure we had about 10 discussions about where this rod's going to go. So we had a conversation about it, and he showed me the drawings, and it was on the inside, the side that I had put it on. I was like, he must have just changed his mind. And at the point, I was like, what's going on? So this guy had been saying these things to me over and over again, all snarky comments about being a woman, very aggressive, very changed. Like, when he changed his mind, he wouldn't say, "Hey, I've changed my mind." He'd be like, "You've done this wrong." And that was not okay. It's not okay. So if you find yourself in this situation when people are having these like aggressive outbursts at you, I want you to remember that it is not about you. All right, I'm going to say this. That statement, it might not make sense right now. It might not feel like it, but a few things. All right, so from the leader's point of view, and depending if the leader, what beliefs the leader has, I say leader loosely, person in a position of power or the aggressive person. Depending on what their beliefs are and how they want to be perceived can really impact how they process different things. And this is not on you. This is not your responsibility to fix it. This is just a process I want to take you guys through so then you can separate yourself from these people outburst. So what can be going on in that person's head, the person that has had the outburst, whether they're a leader or not a leader? They could be confused and not wanting to be seen as confused. Typically, I don't want to paint a brush. I don't like to paint a brush on anyone. Typically, arrogant white men. They were made to be arrogant white men. So usually there's a lot of influences on that praise arrogant white men, blah, 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 going through that. Hopefully you know the type that I'm talking about. So people, men in particular, they get told they need to be decisive, that they need to be confident, And if something has happened, like they've changed their mind, like they've been confused, they don't want to betray that. But in that type of person, that aggressiveness has been praised as being decisive and powerful. So they will go into that mode of being that kind of aggressive because they believe it'll make them be seen as decisive and powerful. That is one thing that can happen. Sometimes they don't want to be seen as being wrong or being weak or like, changing their mind, which is like the opposite of being decisive. But changing your mind can come from a whole different range of reasons that have nothing to do with your confidence or your leadership skill or your power, quote unquote, in general. All right, changing your mind, you can come with new different information. We could have tested that machine and we could have just had to change it because it didn't actually work. And that was no one's fault. We were creating a new machine. Like, it's fine. But if someone doesn't want to be deceived as having like a kink in the armor and not being correct all the time, when they want to change their mind, they can be seen as very, very aggressive and blaming. And this is not your fault. All right. So going back, what do we do? What do we do next? All right. So for us as the humans who may be in this position of someone being aggressive, we want to look at what the facts of what is happening. So with me in my situation, I went to the drafts person. I literally had a drawing of how that machine needed to go together. I looked at the facts. All right. At that point in time, I really didn't have the ability to be like, okay, this was him and not me. But what I did do was I had a look at how often this was happening. All right. So sometimes people can be frustrated, confused, have a bad day. And the question that you've asked them has just been the straw that's broke the camel's back. All right. I feel like kind of everyone gets a little bit of leeway for one of these outbursts, like once a year, like depending on your situation, all that kind of thing. You make the little rule yourself about what is an acceptable amount of outbursts or outrage, just because the human experience can be hard sometimes. But if it is happening all of the time, like for this person that had a go at me about the machine thing, this was his personality. His personality was aggressive outbursts, and it was not okay. Absolutely not okay. So, what do you want to do? So you make the decision. If this is a one-off thing, or you feel like, okay, this is acceptable for anyone to have an outburst, just living the human experience, whether it's once a year or maybe every 6 months when you're in high-stress situations. If the person apologizes afterwards, these are all factors that you want to take into account. But seriously, if it's happening, like, more than I don't want to put a general rule on this because everyone's in a different situation, but I reckon if it's happening at least once every 2 weeks with someone, that's where if someone told me, hey, this guy's having a go at me every 2 weeks and we're in a pretty chill situation, I'd be like, yeah, cool, that's not okay. My particular guy, it was probably happening twice a week, and for up to about 6 months at this point before that particular incident happened, and that was not okay. I decided that it was not okay. I decided in that moment, at that point in my life, I had tried all the tools and resources that I had at my capacity, different ways to have conversations, different ways to try and make it not about me, talking to my therapist about it, all that kind of stuff. I felt like I had used all the tools and resources that I had, and I didn't have anything left to kind of give this situation. I didn't have anything left to try. It was either I was in this situation where I was like, I'm either opting in to cop it or I'm going to have to opt all the way out. So I decided to opt out. I told my boss that I can't work on that site anymore. He just said to me, like, cool, like, can you do another week or two while I line up other work? And I was like, cool, as long as it is not more than 2 weeks, like, I can do that. That is what I decided to do. But really just having a look at the facts. Only taking accountability for what is actually in your control. Especially if they are blaming you for something that is not yours. It is always just good to have a sit and a self-reflect, not to take on everything that they've said, but to filter it. Okay, what is actually in my control in this situation? For me, at that point in time, with the rod being on the inside versus the outside, I had to take the rod and go get it machined so then we can put it on the outside. There was like a few steps that I had to do. So I just went and I did the steps. I did my job in that moment. But looking at the facts, there was nothing I could have done to prevent that situation from happening to me besides literally just not being there. I had followed the instructions on the drawings. We had had multiple discussions about it. I was cleaning up the workshop ready to go home on a Friday night. We had checked in on this machine like 100 times, and he had just come in and had this outburst. I feel like in that situation, when I had gone through that checklist, there was nothing I could have possibly done differently. If, say, you have made a minor mistake in these situations, you can take accountability for that. Oh, yeah, okay, cool. I read the wrong drawing, so I didn't get it right. I'm sorry. I will fix that right now. Don't worry about paying me overtime. Let's go and fix that. That is very minor. That is not life or death. There's nothing going on. It didn't justify his outburst. But if that was the case, then the only thing that I can take accountability for was saying that I didn't read the drawings correctly and moving on from that. His emotions are not my responsibility. Going through the pursuit of perfectionism to try and stop somebody yelling at you is not really a safe place to be. It's not a safe environment. It will just have you on alert all the time. And this is when... So striving for perfection is great. If you're striving for it, it keeps you motivated, it keeps you alert, it keeps you going, keeps you proud. But when it turns into that crippling perfectionism where it's either perfect or nothing and you physically feel like you're going to be unsafe, like in the instance if you don't get it absolutely perfect and someone yells at you like aggressively every time you're not getting it absolutely perfect, this is not a safe environment to be in. And even up to that point, you can decide if it's physical safety that's also at risk or if it's mental safety that's at risk. But if you're always feeling on high alert, you can't relax, you can't switch your logical brain on, and most of the time in those circumstances, you'll end up making more mistakes. How do I know this? Because I've done it. Anyway, and I've seen a few other girls do this as well. When we're on that high alert, our logical brain doesn't really come on board, and then we typically make a few more mistakes. All right, so if we're in this situation, someone has a go at us, have a look at the facts. What is in your control? What could have you prevented from that situation happening? Not saying that it is your fault that person has been aggressive to you, but just purely looking at what you can control just as a self-reflection, not as responsibility for their emotions. Right? If this is happening to you multiple times a week, multiple times a month, you need to decide whether you can actually create any change in the situation or if it's time to get out of there. All right, so have a think, have a reflect on that. Remember, you deserve the right to a safe workplace. Even if you are making mistakes, especially if you're an apprentice, some mistakes are expected, especially if you don't know. We're all human. But if you are getting yelled at aggressively every single time and it's happening multiple times a week, get out of there. Okay, I'm saying that point over and over again because I'm like, please don't stay in a situation which is not serving you, like not giving you any benefit. Like not serving you is like a coaching term that we sometimes use. So if you use that, go for your life. But in a situation that is not helping you in any way, shape or form, get out of there. Go find another workplace, especially if there is aggression all the time. Alrighty, so I can ramp on that and pretty much say the same thing over and over again. I'm sorry if I've repeated myself a few times, but pretty passionate about this one. Alright, so if you do want any help or support with this, please reach out to me. Like, I'm a life coach for tradeswomen, I've got the lived experience, I've got tools to help you get through this and create change, as well as just general support to know that whatever decision you make is the right decision for you right now. And if you want support, some guidance, someone to chat to about it, please reach out to me. We can book in a coaching consult and see if it's a good fit. All right. So the supporter for this episode is Zadie. So Zadie is a women's workwear brand. They create workwear that fits your hips, thighs, and butt. They are personally the workwear that I've been wearing. I really like it. They've got elastic waist at the back. And I find that it fits they fit quite nice. I usually have a gape at the back of my pants, and these don't give me that, so I'm pretty happy with those. So if you're looking at some new workwear, please check Zadie out. And if you don't believe in yourself right now, please borrow my belief in you. I know you can do whatever you put your mind to. You might need to have a nap and a snack first, but I know you can do it. I'll talk to you next episode.